Okay, I would like to welcome everyone to the Henry County Zoning Board meeting of Thursday, May 19th, 2016. Right now, we're going to take care of a few little housekeeping items. This meeting is being televised live on Charter Channel 180 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and will rebroadcast every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. and every Saturday at 12:30 p.m. and is also available by video on demand on the county website. Now would be a good time to turn off your cell phones and if you have laptops. If you wish to speak tonight, you will need to fill out a public hearing speaker card. We're going to allot 10 minutes for those who speak in favor of the case, and then 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of a case. For example, if 10 people wish to speak, they will all share the 10-minute slot and so on. Please address the board and not the audience when you come to speak. At this time, Mr. Head's going to give the invocation and pledge. Please stand.
Father, we'd like to thank you tonight and ask for your blessing, that you would guide our hearts and our minds as we make these decisions tonight. In your Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I'll call this meeting to order. Do you have a motion to approve the agenda? Mr. Bailey made a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Risher. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting? I have a motion by Mr. Bapp, and do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Head. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Mr. Risher? All indicate by raising your hand. Okay. Okay. I didn't see it on this side. Okay. None opposed. All right. Motion carried. Staff, do you have any staff comments at this time?
Yes, Madam Chair. There's one item under staff comments, and that is regarding case number RZ 1607, Southport Financial Real Estate. It was advertised correctly regarding the requested rezoning from and to, but the actual language stated in the article single family, and it's actually multifamily. So for the record, just want to state that the rezoning is for a multifamily residential development.
Okay, thank you. And we want to talk about the next meeting time change?
Yes, as information for the public, effective July 1st, 2016, we will no longer have work sessions, and we will begin our public hearings at 6:30 instead of 7:30.
Okay, and did we introduce our intern last meeting?
No, we didn't. It is my pleasure to just introduce to everyone our 2016 summer intern, a young lady from Alabama A&M University, an outstanding scholar, a junior at Alabama A&M. Her name is Jewel Richardson, and she is sitting behind me. And if you would just wave, Jewel.
Welcome.
Let's make her feel welcome.
Okay. This time we're going to move to the agenda items. If staff will please come call case number 1.
Case number CU-16-03, Skyway Towers, LLC of Tampa, Florida, requests a conditional use for property located at 701 Elliott Road in land lot 57 of the 7th District. The property consists of 10 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a new wireless communications facility. It is located in Commission District 3 and will be presented by our consultant, Mr. Chris Monzingo from Omnicom Consulting Group.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As Mr. Dante said, this is an application for a 120-foot monopole tower. It's a 116-foot tower with a 4-foot lightning rod. It's going to be located approximately 1,100 foot off of the Elliott Road on the parcel that's 10 or so acres. Skyway Towers is the applicant, with Verizon Wireless being their anchor tenant. Skyway Towers proposed to lease a 100 by 100 parcel of land from the landowner to put this site in. The tower will be constructed to support 3 additional tenants in addition to Verizon going on, so there's a possibility to have up to 4 tenants on this tower. The area out there is heavily wooded. From the photo simulations, there's no line of sight from the tower from any of the places they took the pictures from. Plus, there'll be additional landscaping around the site that's required by your ULDC. They met all the requirements of your ULDC. They need the site to improve their coverage in the area and capacity. It looks like a growing area. I drove out there today. There's lots of residences. Everything's either rural, agricultural, or residential in that area. So I'm sure it's a growing area. They have more customers coming online out there, and they need it to cover that area. So the staff recommends approval of the conditional use application with the recommendations listed in the back of the staff report, that it limits to one tower on the one tower with 100 by 100 parcel lease space back there, and that they meet the noise ordinance that's in your ULDC as well.
Do any of the board members have any questions for Mr. Munzingo? Okay. Oh, did you have any, Mr. Nelson? Okay. At this time, we'd like for the applicant to please come forward. I think you should probably stay up here. Yeah. Just in case.
You have a question?
We have questions in the meantime. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Wayne Bruce, and I live at 1901 Munford Place, McDonough, Georgia.
Is there anything you'd like to add to the staff's comment regarding this tower?
Yes, ma'am. Verizon Wireless is located on numerous cell towers here in Henry County already. One in particular is 2.7 miles to the southwest of the location that we're making the proposal on. And the purpose of this tower is to offload information that's being transmitted to and from the alpha sector of that tower. And what that means is that the tower that we're offloading is triggering. And what the term triggering in the telecom industry means that when somebody makes a phone call and it hits off that tower, if there's not enough capacity there, it triggers, meaning that the cell tower does not accept the call, so calls are dropped. And as you're driving, when you move in and away from that tower, that cell phone will drop. So they're trying to avoid that. During our pre-planning meeting, there was a number of things that brought up that I think I can add to the report that the staff has already recommended approval on. One is the tower that the gentleman mentioned over in front of the old Kroger store. That tower is too close to an existing cell tower that Verizon is already on. So for that reason, it would not make economic sense for them to build another cell tower or cell site very close to the one that is already there. Another thing that you will notice on the map up there, the tower that is directly to the east of the proposed location is 3.2 miles away as the crow flies. The one to the east, almost directly east, is 3.1 miles away. We are as dead center as we can possibly be in the, based on the search criteria that we were given. And by the way, the search criteria, the search ring, has a radius of 1/2 mile. So anything outside of that 1/2 mile area would not suffice. It would not be of any use to us. And there again, we're trying to accommodate the offloading of the tower that you see, which is 2.7 miles directly southwest of the proposed location. I believe I heard a comment that why don't we put it on a school property? There is not a school within 1.5 miles of the proposed location. There is no commercial property within 1.5 miles of the proposed location. So during my endeavor to search for a site that would accommodate us, we looked for a piece of property that is large enough to accommodate the cell tower to meet the setbacks. Now there are a number of sites or properties in that area that do meet that criteria. I proposed 3 other sites to Verizon, all of which were denied because of the elevation. All 3 of those sites had ground elevation that's 30 to 40 foot lower in elevation than the site that they have accepted, which is the one that is the subject of this application. Do you have any questions of me?
Do any of the board members have any questions for the applicant? Mr.
Sites that were looked at that were in this immediate area, close to this property, that might be larger or, and therefore provide more distance from adjacent neighbors?
That's a hard question to answer. To answer, yes, there are larger tracts of land in that area. But the further away that we get from the center, where the geographic coordinates, latitude, longitude, center of the circle are, we want to stay as close to the center of the search circle as we possibly can. So to answer your question, I did investigate 4 different properties that fall within that circular radius. And Verizon settled on the one that we are making application on.
Okay, thank you.
I do have that.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes, I noticed you requested a conditional use for the 10 acres.
During the discussion in the pre-plan,
That's correct.
that did come up. It is our intention to get a conditional use only on the 100 by 100 foot parcel. We're not concerned with what the landowner does with the remaining part or portion of that property.
Okay.
I have a question. So the arrow that goes to the one that says it's 2 miles away and it's got a yellow dot, so that's not an existing cell tower, that's a planned cell tower?
That is correct. The one that is depicted in yellow to the southeast, Verizon plans to co-locate on an existing tower at that location.
There is a tower that Verizon just not on.
Oh, so there's an existing tower, okay. And in the planning session, it was noted that the reason that these towers are so close together, you said cell service that it was dropped, but we were saying that it was data service. So how close do they have to be, or far apart do they have to be in order, every 3 miles before it's dropped?
Well,
Kind of help me out here.
There are a
'cause-
lot of various factors that go into the siting of a cell tower, such as the elevation in terrain, the number of trees, mountains, and things of this sort in the area. But many years ago, when I started in this industry, back in 1989, cell towers were generally about 11 miles apart. And over the years, they have come closer and closer and closer together, because the amount of data and voice traffic that can be communicated between cell towers is limited by the frequencies and the amount of users in the community. If you were out in the middle of, say, Arizona, you would not have towers as close as what we have right here. But the households in Henry County, in the census of 2014, there were 633 residential, individuals living in every square mile of Henry County. This particular site, the one that we're proposing, is centered such that there is approximately 10 square miles that will touch on some portion of the coverage area of this tower. So if you multiply that times 633, which is 2-year-old data, it's probably closer to 270 or 675 or so today. You see that that's how many people are depending on this tower for cell coverage. And when you say cell coverage, as we were talking earlier, in every household, there are probably at least one mobile device that uses this type of service. In my household, there are 5. There's only 2 people living there, but there are 5 devices that depend on wireless communications for our communication service.
And just another question I have. Mr. Richard, did you have something?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so, and I'm trying to wrap my head around, and it's just for the public to understand also, and I'm being the So do people call Verizon and say, I don't have service? Is it like they're a demand, or you folks just know that there's a gap in service there? And I guess I'm like, how do you know where? Like there's 7, there'll be 7 cell towers within, it's like a 3-mile radius, and it just seems like a lot of cell towers in one area. So is it such a demand from the public that you put that there? Is that where that's coming from?
That is true. There is a demand from the public that they have good cell phone coverage and data transmission, etc. But in Alpharetta, Georgia, Verizon Wireless has what they call a switch. All of the cell towers in the states of Alabama and Georgia are wired into that switch. And people there who do this remotely can tell when, say for example, this is a cell tower in any particular area within that geographic area, Alabama and Georgia. They can tell you if this particular site is dropping calls electronically, remotely from Alpharetta, Georgia.
So, and I have one other thing. So between the 2.6 mile one and the 3.1 mile one, where you're going to do the proposed, so you're saying right now that whole area does not have coverage?
That is true. I cannot say specifically that it has no coverage, but it has poor coverage. You are very subject to drop a phone call because of the terrain there on Elliott Road and to some degree over at Campground Road.
I don't know if it can, I don't know what road that is.
Elliott Road runs directly north and south, right through the center of that circle.
It's the one where the road that runs for the 2.0 that runs, what road is that? No, this one right here is what I'm talking about, because see, this is proposed. It's the road that's running through the proposed.
Yes.
That's Elliott Road? I can't see what that road is.
It is.
That's
It
Elliott Road?
is.
Elliott Road runs right.
Yes.
Okay.
Elliott Road runs north and south. Campground Road runs east and west and intersects into Elliott Road.
Okay.
Just north of the site.
Basically, the center of our search area is the intersection of Campground Road and Elliott Road.
So, another question, I apologize. So look at your 2.0, so look from your red circle to your yellow circle. So maybe putting a cell tower maybe in the middle there, that's not, would that not help? And so you wouldn't have to have so many cell towers in one area?
This tower is already there.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. Okay.
You just have to close it.
You just, okay. I just got, the yellow's confusing me. Okay, so it is an existing cell tower. You just don't have, Verizon is just not on that tower.
That is correct.
But you plan on being on that tower?
They will be on that tower shortly, and it'll be a co-location, which does not require a new tower. The tower's already
Okay.
there. The only one that we're not on right now that's depicted up there is the one dead center, which is the proposed tower, and the one to the southeast, which is yellow.
Okay. Mr. Isher, I'm finished.
I think it was mentioned at one time that, some of these towers can be camouflaged, to look like a tree, or at least offset some of its appearance. Is that something that Verizon does?
They do, yes.
Okay.
And they can be disguised as a tree. Those of us, it's a matter of everybody's opinion, I suppose, but in my opinion, when you disguise a cell tower as a tree, it makes it stand out more so than if it were not described or disguised as a tree, because you just don't see pine trees that grow to the height that towers generally are.
And they tend to have these big things that look like fins on them anyway, and of course that doesn't look like a tree, so, okay, but I just thought I'd ask.
That is true, they can be done that way.
What's going to be the composition of the small easement road that goes into the property? Is that going to be gravel?
It will be gravel. We're leasing a 20-foot wide easement. The road will go down the center of that 20-foot, measuring 12-foot in width. The utilities will be buried along the excess of that 12-foot down the driveway to the cell tower site.
Are these going to be underground utilities that go to serve the, you know,
They will be,
the
they will
proposed
be
tower?
underground. Yes.
And will there be drainage swales along this roadway so that it doesn't drain off onto adjacent properties?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have for the moment.
Any other board members have any questions for the applicant?
Let me, Mr. Bruce, in our session before this meeting, you indicated, somebody indicated, or I brought up that there's one individual, one resident that is concerned about health issues. Can you clear the air on that? Is there any danger to health?
No, sir, there is not any danger. But what I can tell you is this, that the telecom industry is regulated by the FCC, that is the Federal Communications Commission. All the frequencies that are used on any tower, regardless of who it is, whether it's Verizon Wireless or Sprint or anybody else out there, they are regulated by the FCC. And when I say regulated, they are limited in the amount of output in power that they can generate from an antenna. And in this case, it will be around 500 or less watts per antenna. Now, 500 watts is the equivalent of 5 100-watt light bulbs. And when you talk about the safety of a cell tower, I had a gentleman one time in Tennessee who was an RF engineer who sat on the very board that you folks are sitting on. And someone in the audience asked about the safety, and he made this point. He said, every night when we lay down in our bed, we have a clock or a lamp and perhaps a radio and a telephone right beside our bed. Those items are generating more electronic energy than you would ever encounter by these cell towers, because the cells are on the tower, and in this case, 116 feet above the ground. So they are safe.
And just to add, there is a published standard by the FCC that Verizon and all those other guys have to meet within the standards of maximal permissible exposure. So it is regulated, and there is a standard out there for that.
Do they regulate how close they can be to each other? Because there's going to be 8 in this area, so that seems like it's a lot of energy within the 3-mile radius.
The energy dissipates very quickly as you move away from the antenna. But no, they don't. There's no regulation on how close antennas can be together.
Okay, somebody's got to ask these questions,
Cell towers or antennas, I like to think of them like an electric heater that you might have on a cold day in a room that you want to use to knock the heat back a little bit or the cold. If you stand directly next to that electric heater or even touch it perhaps, you'll get burned. But if you move back away from it, and like most people do, you are not going to feel the direct heat and be burned by that electronic device inside of that heater. Cell tower antennas are very similar to that.
Anyone else? Mr. Head, you have something?
Yes. Is there any warning signs on the gate or fence that says anything about?
Signs are required by the FCC to identify the site. When a site is given an assigned number by the FCC, that number has to appear on that gate. The gate will be at the road, and the sign will be at the road on the gate, as well as on the fence at the surrounding fence at the compound itself, to identify who owns the tower and the FCC number.
So there's none warning the public about any safety hazard?
No, not to my knowledge.
Anyone?
I got one more too.
Mr.
Is there
Bennett.
any data on the impact of property values for towers?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Any other board members? Mr. Risher?
Yes, Mr. Mendingo, Could you explain what the county ordinance requires as far as landscaping around the exterior fence of these types of facilities?
Yeah, it's, let me grab their site plan, and it depicts it fairly well. Rather than me trying to read it out of your code.
The landscape requirement is a 10-foot tall evergreen tree every 15 feet along the outside of the perimeter of the fenced area. And in addition to that, we're required to put I think it's 2-foot shrub every 4 feet out away from those evergreen trees. And at the time of planting, they have to be 10 feet in height. And at the end of 1 year, they have to reach 80% of the height of the shelter, which is inside of the compound. The shelter height is 11 feet.
See that?
The trees will be 10 feet at the time of planting. So
The larger trees here that you're seeing are the 10-foot trees.
And this are the 2-foot shrubs, all the way around here, so.
And there are some existing tall trees. I believe most of them are pine trees that kind of surround or wrap around this section of the property. Is there any plans to preserve them as they are?
yes, sir. The area where you see the compound proposed currently is open land, about as level as this floor, but it's in fescue, ryegrass, etc. There are trees surrounding the entire parcel. None of the trees will be, there's not a requirement to cut any trees at all at the place where the compound itself will be. Where the easement comes in from Elliott Road, there will be a requirement to cut about 6 big trees down through there. But we have veered the path of the easement just a little bit to avoid having to take down some big trees. So we're doing our best to preserve those as best we can.
Any other board members have any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Okay, this time we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. If you come up, please state your name and address for the record. You coming to speak in favor of the case? Okay, no one's coming up to speak in favor of the case. All right, at this time, we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Eddie Crumley. I live on 555 Elliott Road, which is about 300 feet south of the proposed property. First of all, thank you, Madam and the board, for allowing us to have a few moments to make a few comments. Obvious to everyone, but it's already been addressed, I believe, but everything within about a 3-mile radius of this proposed tower is residential agricultural. It's been that way forever and ever, and there's nothing there but homes, farms, land, some subdivisions. The other thing, which probably is not as significant to whether it really goes in or not, but in reference to the gentleman speaking earlier, I was contacted probably more than a year ago about putting the proposed tower on my property. I can't speak for other property owners, but I do know that others in the area were asked about their interest in putting the tower on their property. And in the effort of keeping the integrity of the community and respect of our neighbors, I declined to consider doing this. Also, in regards to the usage, I have Verizon, and I don't believe I've ever had a call dropped in the area. Plus, I have a MiFi that I use for our computer, and I download spreadsheets, Word documents, PowerPoint presentations, and I have 2 daughters that live in the area, and they all work out of their offices and homes using, cell communication. So, for those reasons, I would like to voice some opposition and appreciate your time.
I'll come up and speak in opposition of the case. Please state your name An address for the record.
Richard Gardner, live on Campground Road, 1650 Campground Road. First of all, thank you for having this and allowing us to speak. My property is bordered on two sides by the property in question with this tower. There's a north and a west side that makes a corner to my property. And there's, it'll be impacted on the north and west by the cell property. There's also a small creek that will be about 100 yards less down the hill from where this tower will be located. And it runs through my property, through probably 2 or 3 other people's properties, making its way down to Walnut Creek. There are people there with livestock, cattle on their fields. They do depend upon this water, so I don't know how that's going to be took care of, impact on that. Also, the visual aspect of just having this thing back there, I do not like. I'll have to look at it when I'm out on my property. I'm pretty active out on my property quite often. I do have a food plot for the deer to eat in the fall and winter. I'm back there probably 6 months out of the year. I'm back there at least once, twice, 3 or 4 times a week, constantly checking on things. Got cameras up, taking care of the wildlife and whatever. We do a lot of hiking on our property, bird watching, watching the fawns grow. I grew up on the land. I don't want to see it changed. I like the rural aspect of what we have. We got a good community, good neighbors. Don't want to see them leave due to this tower. We'd like to see it stay just like it is. Also, they talk about devaluing property. There's no data on that. Just this morning, I was on the computer looking at different things about devaluation of cell tower property adjacent to cell towers, and I saw anywhere from 2 to 20% on what I was looking at. Also, if there is a devaluation of the property, there would be a property tax loss for the county, if that's considered. We have the aesthetic rural appeal of living where we live is one we all bought and built our houses there. We would like for it to remain the same and not have the invasion of cell towers. There's currently, as was mentioned before, that fire station with the tower up there. I don't know all the aspects of that, but that should be looked at closer, I do believe. And I beg to differ a little bit on the gentleman saying that there was not a tower, school property within 1.5 miles of where this proposed location is. In a straight line from where we're at talking about to Union Grove, I think it's close. If you go in a straight line, if you drive up there, it's 1.8. You go in a straight line, you'll probably hit your marks. Be 1.5 miles. I'd be surprised if it's not like that. I would respectfully request that the board deny this application for permit, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case?
532.
Madam Chair and board members, my name is Charles Downey. I live at 557 Heathmore Drive, McDonough, Georgia. As Mr. Crumley indicated, the citizens in the area of the cell tower have worked hard through the years to maintain the rural character of the community. This tower will distract the characteristics of the neighborhood. The application of the tower is very disturbing to me because if you note in the applicant's photo site map on page 33 of your staff report, it's right here. I'd like to call your attention to the photo on Campground Road and within Emerald Plantation. I was unable to go to all the sites on this site map, but I would like to call your attention on Campground Road and Emerald Plantation. There's the photo of Campground Road on page 35 of your staff report. If the photographer had gone to 25 yards to the left, he would have taken a picture of a home in the foreground, and in the background would be the location of the tower. Now, if the photographer went about 300 yards to the right, he would have taken a picture of a pasture in the foreground, and then in the background been location of the tower. Now let's go to the Emerald Plantation subdivision. This photograph is on page 36 of the staff report. And I want to mention to you that this is the lowest point in the Emerald Plantation subdivision. Now I want to show you another photograph. That was taken approximately 100 yards up the hill from where the applicant took their picture. And as you see, the tower will be seen from there from my point of view. And if you continue up the hill to say about 200 yards, you still can see the tower. And that's about 300 yards. This was 520 yards approximately. Since the applicant's photos are misleading, what other parts within the applicant's application and statements, what others are misleading? Can you really trust what's in the application? I request this application be denied and the tower be moved to another location. And as mentioned, the tower at the old fire station, why can't that be increased in size? And then about 2 months ago, there was an application for a tower at McGarrity Road. And for some reason, that application was withdrawn. Seemed like that would be a good possibility also. Board members and chairman, Madam Chair, I appreciate y'all's service to the county and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Minute and 22. Anybody else want to come and speak in opposition of the case? So you have 1 minute and 22 seconds.
Okay, I'd like to read an email I sent to the board.
I need your name and address.
My name is Nanette Howard, 238 Elliott Road, McDonough. We have been residents of Henry County for 77 and 74 years respectively, and specifically Elliott Road for 38 years. We have watched with pride the county grow from primarily rural agricultural to a thriving suburb of Atlanta. With diligent work and planning by various boards and strong leadership by county commissioners, the integrity of family farms has been protected as they coexist with subdivisions and planned communities. Elliott Road is a mix of beautiful family acreages. Directly to the east, to the northeast is East Lake Road and Georgia 155, which is developed with churches, schools, and businesses. You have before you a request for conditional use rezoning. The cell tower should be permitted in a nearby commercial area. After all, it is a business. Commercial is commercial and residential is residential, and maintaining the integrity of our rolling hills and planned communities is the job of our planning and zoning board. You are requested to deny this rezoning and allow the cell tower in the nearby commercial area. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody can come up and speak in 5 seconds, but we're going to allow it if you can speak in 5 seconds. Okay, I don't see anyone coming up. All right, so I'll ask the applicant to please come forward. Does the board members have any further questions for the applicant after hearing statements from the public? All right, you may be seated. There's no more. Okay. Can we please call the case?
Case number CU-16-03, Skyway Towers LLC of Tampa, Florida, requests a conditional use for property located at 701 Elliott Road in Land Lot 57 of the 7th District. The property consists of 10 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a new wireless communications facility. It is located in Commission District 3 and was presented by our consultant, Chris Monzingo from Omnicom Consulting Group.
Do I have a motion for this case?
Yes, I make a motion to deny this request based on impacts on surrounding properties, and I feel that there are other, public lands and commercial lands not too far from this site that could be suitable for this facility. So that's my motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Risher. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a second by Mr. Head. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. All right, motion carried. Next case.
Case number VR-16-04, Brightwood Place LLC of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located on Turner Church Road near the intersection of Airline Road, known as Brightwood on the Lake, formerly known as Brightwood Place, in land lots 86 and 107 of the 7th District. The property consists of 42.79 plus or minus acres, and the request is to allow the development of several single-family residences and is located in Commission District 3. It will be presented by Ms. Josephine Medina.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. In the case I am presenting to you today, the applicant is requesting various variances to setback regulations for that are presented on the overhead. And these are for setbacks to front yard, side yard, and rear yard setbacks. And this is for the subdivision Brightwood on the Lake. And it is only for 10 lots. What staff has done is looked at each lot individually and pretty much looked at the criteria that is required per section 11.0203 on granting variances to see if there are any extraordinary or exceptional conditions that would pretty much not allow the development of any home because of the regulations placed, such as setbacks. So I'm not sure if you can see, but highlighted in blue, there are is where the 10 lots are located, which are being requested. And what staff has looked at was a precedent was set back in May of 2015 with regards to a subdivision close by to this subdivision, which was Hickory Hills, where due to the wetland buffer, there was a hindrance to the ability to use their yard for the residents. And what I'm going to do is show you an example of what lots we looked at and how we looked at the wetland setback and, buffer, and how it affects the backyard. So, for example, lot 208, if you see where the setbacks are for the rear and where the 25-foot buffer is, you can see where there is hindrance for the home owner to be able to use his backyard due to that buffer and the ability to build a larger home and be able to use his backyard. Having looked at that, lots which were hindered by the 25-foot wetland buffer, and lots that didn't have that hindrance or any other extraordinary situation where we believe would hinder development of the property. Staff has recommended the approval of the following 6 lots in a reduction of setbacks from 40 feet to 30 feet, as well as the reduction of a rear yard setback for 1 lot from 40 to 30 feet. Staff is now ready to answer any questions you may have.
Board members have any questions for the staff at this time? Mr. Richmond? No? No questions? Okay. Would the applicant please come forward? State your name and address for the record.
Evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Steve Moore, Moore-Bass Consulting, 1350 Keys Ferry Court, McDonough, Georgia. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here tonight representing Brightwood Place Atlanta LLC, who is now the proud owner of Brightwood on the Lake subdivision. I rezoned that piece of property about 13 years ago to R2 at the time, and I'm happy to see it finally moving forward. My client had purchased this property in 2014, and since then has began the process of reviving it, and has completely redone the entrance, all the landscaping at the entrance and the signage, gone through and retested all the water lines and cleaned out all the sewer lines, and is just getting the project back to a point where it can be marketed and developed and constructed on. Part of that process involved a pretty thorough review of all of the existing water and sewer services that existed at each lot, and we went through a process of trying to reconfigure some of the rear lot lines to accommodate building pads that were better home sites for future residents out there. So we worked real hard to just try to really get creative with how we could reshape some of these lots while still honoring all of the existing infrastructure that was put in place out there. There's 65 total lots in this development, and through our review of this thing, we were able to narrow down just 10 lots that were challenged, and Josephine referenced those due to different issues. Wetland buffers was certainly one of the issues. Floodplain. There's sewer easements, there's just lots of different horizontal constraints. And so through this process, narrowed it down to 10 lots. Our request is not so that we can fit a bigger box on these lots. Our request is simply to fit a better home site, one that is not going to push somebody's backyard right up to a wetland buffer or to a floodplain and then cause problems for the county when something happens and y'all are the first ones that they call. This is an effort to build a better home site. And I think everyone will agree that a home away from wetlands is the right thing to do, not push it right up to it. So that is the reason for our request. And we hope that you will agree that what we're requesting is not out of line, is not out of the ordinary, and would create a better product for the homeowner and for the county. I've read through the staff's report, and I'm appreciative that they're suggesting or recommending approval on the 7 lots that touch the wetlands or the floodplain, wetland buffers rather. But there were still 3 lots that I'd like to address, and I read through the different review criteria, and this is very similar to what you've already seen, but just provides a little bit of color to it. But under the staff review criteria, the first criteria point that was evaluated, it states that there was no extraordinary or exceptional conditions pertaining to the lot size, or the lots due to their size, shape, or topography that are not applicable to other lands in the R3 district. And I wanted to bring attention to the R3 district. We're technically zoned R3. This subdivision, I rezoned the subdivision to R2, and it was developed under R2 standards, and it was final platted under R2 standards. R2 standards are different than R3, setback-wise. R2 is a 40-foot rear setback and a 40-foot front setback and a 15-foot side setback. R3 is a 30-foot front setback and a 30-foot rear setback and a 10-foot side setback. So there's 30% reduction that our lots have based on the way that the subdivision was built, a 30% reduction in what is currently allowed by the zoning that we have. So I just wanted to bring attention to that. I feel like we do have a hardship in that I think every lot is spatially challenged just based on the fact that we have a 30% less building envelope than what our zoning would allow. But we can't develop to the R3 standards because we have an existing subdivision that we can't change. I mean, it is what it is. So we have actually, and that it is a 30% reduction in buildable area between the R3 setbacks and what we're proposing with the R2 setbacks. We are limiting ourselves by 30% of buildable area. As to criteria 4, there was a statement in the report that said that the setback by going from a 40-foot to a 30-foot front setback would result in 25% closer, houses being 25% closer to the property lines. But again, R2 is a 10-foot difference. We're not asking for anything less than what our current zoning is. Technically, what our current zoning is, which is R3. We're not asking to go any closer than any of what R3 requirements are. Criteria 5 says that the report states that there are the special circumstances are the result of proposed actions by the applicant, meaning that's something that we've done to ourselves to create this problem. And I disagree with that. I think my client has done the best he can with the subdivision that was delivered to him that had existing roads and existing utilities and existing problems that were fixed. We looked at every linear foot of every lot and every associated setback, and we're able to leave 55 of them alone. And we have 10 lots left. And all we're asking is that we can use the R3 standards. That is what this entire report compares us to. And all I'm asking is that we could just keep that just for those 10 lots, and it's not even every setback in those 10 lots, it's just certain lines that we need to be able to accommodate the type of pad, the type of product that you guys are going to want to see, that's going to sell and that people are going to be happy with. I don't think we're setting a precedent. I think it's a very rare situation where we have a subdivision that was developed under an old set of rules and a new set of rules was since adopted. I don't know that there's many out there like that. Again, this is not a typical aggressive developer request trying to pick up lots or be able to accommodate some, huge building area. This is to create better home sites that citizens are definitely going to appreciate and you're going to appreciate. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Do the board members have any questions for the applicant?
I do.
Mr. Nelson?
Under the existing lot, what size property would you be able to build there? Under R2, that it was actually...
The lot size is the same. The lot size is the same in R2 in what we were previously zoned as R2 and what we're currently zoned as R3. That is still a 18,000 square foot lot, 100 foot wide by 180 foot deep. The building envelope is, I don't know the exact area, but it's 30% smaller in R2 than it is in R3 because the setbacks are less in R3 than they are in R2.
Okay. So you're building the same size property if you had build it on the R2?
Same size lots, yes, sir.
Okay.
The only difference is there's more buildable area in R3 than there is in R2.
Okay.
And all we're asking is to go to the R3 on just a couple of setback lines within those 10 lots.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Mr. Richard?
Mind if I clarify something?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So that was so R2 is actually 30,000 square feet now. So what he's talking about is R2 in the old code. So I think how Mr. Richard had said back in the workshop, these were the old code's requirements, not the current one, just so there's no confusion.
Yeah, I think that the old R2, it was 30,000 square feet on a septic system, but then it allowed with public sewer, I believe, 18,000 square feet. But the setbacks at that time, I think, were 40 feet. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, and I think what okay, well, it gets a little bit confusing as to how this came about. So I think that's how, some of the special circumstances that you mentioned, but. Right now, I don't have any more questions.
Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated. At this time, we'll call those who want to speak in favor of the case. We'll allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. Okay, I don't see anyone coming up. Then we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. Okay. Going to have you just come up one more time, just in case maybe somebody thought of a question. I'll have the applicant to please come forward, just to see if any of the board members maybe thought of something else they might want to ask. Any board members have anything for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated. Please call the case.
Case number VR-16-04, Brightwood Place LLC of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for a property located on Turner Church Road near the intersection of Airline Road, known as Brightwood on the Lake, formerly known as Brightwood Place, and land lots 86 and 107 of the 7th District. The property consists of 42.79 plus or minus acres, and the request is to allow the development of several single-family residences and is located in Commission District 3 and was presented by Ms. Josephine Medina.
Do you have a motion for this case?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the variances for, I believe it's 7 lots that were recommended by the staff, and however, that the remaining 3 can be considered for administrative variances or waivers at the discretion of the planning and zoning director, and so therefore would leave it to the staff to work with the applicant on those remaining 3.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Risher, I have a second by Mr. Nelson. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. Okay, you can call the next case, please.
Case number VR-16-05, Halpern Enterprises Incorporated of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a variance from development regulations for property located at 58 East Lake Road in land lot 27 of the 7th District. The property consists of 31.78 plus or minus acres, and the request is to allow the development of a shopping center, and it's located in Commission District 3 and will be presented by Ms. Josephine Medina.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board again.
Good evening.
The property that is being requested various variances is the property that is located on the northwest corner of Highway 155 and East Lake Road. This consists of 3 lots, and the requests are as follows. So those are the 7 variances requests as shown on the overhead. The request number 4 was removed because it was able to meet the development regulations, as well as a request for the number that was part of the application that was to reduce the number of unbroken parking spaces that can occur in one row. That was also be able to be met through the development regulations. So the requested property is zoned C2 and RA. There is a running concurrent rezoning case that is requesting from RA to C2 for the property to be rezoned, and that is for 4.582 acres. That portion right there at the corner near the school. There is also, so to the side of the property, there are a vacant gasoline station and an auto parts store, as well as to the east of the property is where we have a Union Grove High School. I should point out that southeast of the property, we have what is a residence. It is the only residence that is adjacent to the property. So it would be the one that would be most affected by any of the variances that would be granted. So staff has gone ahead and looked at each variance case by case. Looking at the site plan and what is being proposed and the shape, all the extraordinary conditions that might exist from what is being proposed and the development. So what the applicant is proposing is a grocery and a shopping center. So this features 123,602 square feet building with 29,000 square feet for future development, and two 14,198 square foot buildings, as well as a as well as a fuel center. They are also, from the site plan that was given to us, proposing 4 out parcels. After looking at the request by the applicant, we did realize that the 40-foot buffer reduction from 40 to 20 feet with a decorative fence is something that could be done administratively. It does require that the intent of the ULDC can be achieved and equal performance obtained by granting a waiver of this standard. And staff believe that this is the case for this particular variance request. In addition to that, there is a specifics in regards to a variance that would allow a signable area standard to be more than 500 square feet of signable area. So the ULDC code specifically has sets of criteria that should be looked at when determining whether to grant the variance. That includes the size of the building on the property, the potential to subdivide the property, and the number of different businesses occupying the property. Also, if this is approved, the variance shall include a condition that the variance shall be terminated upon any subdividing of the land. So looking at all the criteria, including the specifics regarding the signable area increase, staff has recommended approval of the increase to signable area, as well as the increase to the height of entrance signs from 8 feet to 10 feet, and the reduction of the 40-foot buffer to 20 feet, and has recommended denial of all the other requests for variances because staff does not believe it meets all the criteria. So staff has had placed a condition on the report for signable area as we believe it would fit better the intent of what the ULDC had intended when they said to if the lot was subdivided, that the variance would be terminated. Staff has also gotten some, I guess, comments from the agent, which is to your right-hand side, and staff has no objection to those conditions placed on the master sign plan, and I am happy to answer any questions from the board.
Do any board members have any questions for staff? I have one question. Can you put the site plan back up on the screen right quick? I just need to ask a quick question. Point to Moss Drive. So the resident that faces Moss Drive is, can you show me where that resident is located? That one resident? Is it in the back side there? So it's not on Moss Drive, but I think it's behind it, right there. Is it just that one little corner? Okay, so are you approving the 100, the request for hold on. Maybe that was taken out. Number 4 was taken out. Was that correct? Okay.
Right.
So it's still going to be, minimum setback of 100 feet.
Right.
Okay. All right, never mind. I just answered my own question. I apologize.
Well, being that you asked that, I do have a question.
Okay.
In reference to the 40 feet buffer, is that in that same area? He's asking for a reduction down to 20 feet.
Right, so it would be pretty much that whole area, anything that touches residential, which would be that whole area in green.
So then my question back to you then, just that portion, could it be not reduced?
That could be a condition that could be placed.
So in other
yes.
words, it could still be 40 just where it butts up against the residential?
Yeah.
Because it looks like there's space there.
Mm-hmm.
Except for there's a retention pond, looks like,
Yeah.
which will have a fence around it. And then is that where the decorative fence is also going to go?
Right, if it's reduced by 20, then yes, that would
So
be
if it's
something
reduced by
that's
20,
required.
there'll be a decorative fence.
Yeah, it's part of the variance.
Here.
Please.
Administratively, I can reduce that buffer by half. So if it's a 40-foot requirement, administratively, they can request a waiver to reduce it by half from 40 to 20 with a decorative fence.
Okay. All right.
But
Thank you. But go
now I
ahead.
have a question for you, Dante. Now, is that feasible to do so? Is that a normal request, and is that a normal action to reduce it by, based on the residents being in the back of that location?
It is a common request.
Okay.
Okay, I don't have any more other questions. Anyone else have any questions for staff? All right, if we can ask the applicant to please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening, members. My name is Andy Welch. I'm with law firm of Smith, Welch, Webb & White. We're here representing Halpern, the applicant in this request. Halpern Industries is here. Mr. Stephen West is here in the back. There he is, waved his hand. And he is here with me tonight, so if there are questions from members of the board or members of the audience, he'll be happy to take those. Also, we have representatives from Kroger. I'll ask them to stand. Thank you, that are here as well to see this project through. The request is for a variance to the underlying application. You've heard the approval from staff on several of the conditions or the variances that we've requested. So I'll address, what I'd like to do is I've given to staff, and I believe to all members of the board, a copy of what we're labeling as Exhibit A to the variance application, VR 1605. And I'll put that up on the screen. But what we've tried to do is consolidate the staff's issues that they've raised with me and then the concerns that we've had into a set of conditions for the variance requirements. And let me address the parking, because that's the one area that has not been recommended by staff for approval. And so what I'd like to show you, and I've got all the ordinances here attached, but I'll show you for the overhead. What this is showing is a breakdown of all the parking requirements of all the adjoining counties, and then 2 of our cities in Henry County that would be in close proximity to this particular site, Stockbridge and McDonough. In 2009, the county adopted the new ULDC, which is what's governing this project and many other projects that you've heard of tonight and before. Henry County's present ratio of parking requires a 1 to 150 square foot for the grocery area, a 1 space per 100 for retail. That means for every 1,000 square feet, you'd have to have as many as 10 parking spaces for every 1,000. The previous ordinance had 1 for every 200 square feet. Then in our nearby jurisdictions, you'll see the parking ratio for spaces per square foot really track more along the lines of what the old ordinance said. Butts County is 1 to 200, Clayton County 1 to 250, and as you see, as you get into more urban areas, you're seeing a higher ratio of 1 to 300 in DeKalb, Fayette County 1 to 300, Fulton a 1 to 200. I have seen, I think, a couple of states or counties that have a 1 to 500 ratio for retail parking. Also in Rockdale County, a 1 to 225 is what I saw, but I've also seen, I think staff has one at 1 to 250, I think it is. Stockbridge has a 1 to 200 ratio, and McDonough's a 1 to 250 ratio. I've just taken those as all of our surrounding jurisdictions, and then those two cities that are in Henry County. You can see that the average works out to be about 1 to 240. What we're asking for is essentially 1 to 250. So that would be consistent with pretty much all the surrounding jurisdictions, as well as consistent with our cities that are located inside. And the point that I want to make not only is by comparison, but I want you to think about this from the terms of possibly amending your ordinance, because you're talking about parking. So we're talking about a substantial expenditure in terms of paving, gravel, and the ongoing maintenance and striping. Where does parking go? It goes over land, so you have to purchase more land to add the parking that's being required under your ordinance. That is a much higher level of parking than any of the other jurisdictions nearby. In addition, you're having to ask for not only the cost of the parking and the land to build the parking on. Is if you couldn't even accommodate it on land, the only other solution would be to build structured parking, elevated parking. Think about that in terms of a Kroger shopping center, a Publix shopping center, anything with a square footage that's in excess of 40,000 square feet in terms of your shopping space. Pretty much most of your retail shopping centers in Henry County, from the Target shopping center, Henry Crossing, would all have to build, you'd have to build structured parking on those properties, because think about the huge land mass of parking that's there in those areas. Looking at this site plan in particular, almost all of this area is in parking. So if you are concerned about seas of parking, then requiring and mandating the current standard would far exceed what we're showing here now, and we have no more room. We have no more space to put the parking on this property. So that's of major concern. What it does is it places Henry County at an economic disadvantage to all of its surrounding jurisdictions. You'll only be incentivizing individuals to annex their property into a neighboring city in order to secure a lower parking level because of the tremendous cost that's involved. And that's just to get the parking on the ground. That doesn't even take into consideration the amount of cost in maintenance of the stormwater detention facilities. And if you're at all concerned about stormwater and water quality, then we're adding more impervious surface, that is surface that doesn't allow rainwater to get to the groundwater. And you're collecting that, with automobile byproducts, the oil, gasoline, whatever runs off the vehicles, into that, and you're running that into the groundwater supply. The fewer parking spaces within reason that you allow, the less environmental impact you have, the more that rainwater will actually get into the groundwater, and the less water you have to detain in the off chance of a very severe storm event that would rush out of those detention ponds and go elsewhere. So more parking, really frankly, is worse for the environment. It only encourages a greater heat pad here for heat reflection, and frankly, it just doesn't look very good. So we're requesting this variance, and I think staff's right in the sense that they have to follow the criteria. But please understand that since 2009, I'm unaware of, and I've requested the information of staff, I don't think we have had any developments of a retail shopping center since 2009 whereby the new parking requirements have been required. Now, please understand, this ordinance existed before this staff was here, so that I'm not pointing a finger at anyone, because this happened before this staff was here, and this is, I think, the first retail center we've had to look at under the new requirements. And I'm asking you to vary those because I think they're too much. They're too much, and I think they create a very bad precedent for Henry County, the unincorporated area of Henry County. If you're talking about, a Cabela's that wants to locate possibly at Jodico Road, the incentive is to annex all of that property into Stockbridge, if for no other reason, to get better parking, and to lower the parking requirements. This is of concern to me as a citizen of our county. So I'd ask that you grant that. Now, what we've done is we've included some parking variance requests here for you, and I'll put this on the screen because I want to take into account this request, and I'll ask you to allow it to be just uniform as a one space per 250 square feet. That would be the minimum. Certainly, if we wanted to pave more, that would be on us and our expense and the corresponding maintenance requirements to go with it. But as a minimum, we would like it to be 1 to 250. I point that out because in subpart B there, we had written 200, and I'd like that to be 250. That would be consistent with the top here, which is a 250 request there. And then there's discussion in the workshop, and afterwards we spoke to the adjoining property owner to try and address some of her concerns. Before I get to that, Commissioner Nelson had also had a concern about handicap parking, and we have included here, I wrote it myself, that would state, D would state, the number of handicap spaces shall meet the requirements of the ADA, which is the American Disabilities Act, or the ULDC as varied herein, whichever is stricter, and I've written that out. So if the ULDC actually requires more handicap spaces, even if it's as varied here, then that would get you more spaces. If it's the ADA, we were not going to go below, so the ADA would have the floor in this request. So I think that hopefully addresses some of the handicap space issues that was raised in the workshop. And then in addition, the buffer area, there's an issue about the adjoining property owner. And so what I wrote here was that the buffer variance would be reduced from 40 to 20 with the decorative fence. And then I wrote, except where the subject property adjoins the 2-acre tract owned by, now or formerly by, Miss Elisa Robertson on Moss Road. And that's the 2-acre tract that the chairwoman was speaking of before. And in that case, we're saying it would be a 40-foot landscape buffer there. So the only place we could do 20 would be along the school board's property, and that would still require a decorative fence. So we're trying to listen to what members of the public have said and be responsive to that. I will leave these here with staff. We can make a copy later on, and I can send those to them. But those would be the requested changes that I hope address some of the landscaping issues that have been raised. With that, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions from board members for the applicant?
I do.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes. Now, if you remove this top copy, the top sheet that you have there, I want to see the existing. Okay. Now, the building zone, it looks like two different buildings here on each side. Construction there. Is that going to be retail, other retail space, or is that all Kroger space?
There'll be retail space in all those units across the board. Can be retail, just as a normal shopping center.
Okay. So the parking requirement is going to meet the requirement for retail as well?
Yes, if you do the 250, that meets retail, grocery. The advanced was, I think grocers had a little bit more, but when looking across the board, what other jurisdictions have referred to, they don't refer to grocery. We have that as unique to our ordinance. All the rest of them are referring to shopping centers or retail stores.
Okay. So if you have bill outs, those bill outs are going to be made aware that that space has met the requirements based on the reduction, based on this variance.
Yes, and we'll also have to have a shared parking easement because of the nature of the parcel itself. So that would be required, and that's already agreed to in terms of with Kroger. There'll be a shared parking easement across the board so that, when you come into the shopping center, you drive in and you may want to you may want to get your hair cut at Great Clips, and then go to the Kroger to shop. So let's just say that may be the case. Then you need to have that shared parking easement so that people can access both.
Understood.
Okay, Mr. Risher, you have anything? I have a couple questions if you don't.
We had discussed earlier, I don't know, and I don't know whether it's to bring up here or on the rezoning, but that the county would require a detailed landscape plan to be submitted, and the Department of Development Plan Review shall have final approval of the plan. We discussed that the standards of the landscape plan require 25-foot separation of trees at the side and rear lines. And I think that we discussed also requiring 25 feet on the front side of these out parcels instead of 40 feet.
Is that the front?
Yes.
I'm kind of confused because it looks like the front to me is on 155.
And also 155 as well.
Right.
So if I may, just to make sure I understand, I think that, Mr. Risher, you'd like it to be that on the frontage road of East Lake and on 155, you want the trees to be at a 20-foot, 5-foot separation as opposed to 40?
Yes.
Okay. My client's fine with adding that as essentially a condition to the variance for the parcels. And then that condition actually would then apply to everything that you see in green. So it'll apply to this one. And then when you do the rezoning, we'll also stipulate to that 25-foot on the frontage road as well for that particular zoning.
Yes.
In order to cover both properties. I think we're trying to cover both properties, if I'm understanding. Yeah. So if we want to add that to it, we're happy to add that to it.
Okay.
I do have a question. About the sign from 8 foot to 10 foot. Is there a reason for that? Why the sign has to be 2 foot taller?
I'll just show you.
You're in a rural area. I just didn't know why this. I mean, it's not like you're trying to reach, the interstate so people can see it.
Yes, what will likely happen is you'll have. This is a 25-foot sign, but this.
I was going to say they looked awfully tall.
Yes, you can see the gentleman here. What this does is allows for a more of a base and obviously gives more signage to the top here area by elevating the sign up off the ground. So it gives them a lot of signable area, but it also allows for the sign itself, the monument-based sign, to be elevated up so that you don't waste that space at the very bottom.
Okay.
So it was just set maximums on it, and that's all that's the adjustment there.
What's that base made of? Does it?
This base is block. It's a block.
Okay. And I noticed that in a lot of the, and I'm assuming Kroger developments, and maybe the folks from Kroger can answer this, that it's the same retail that follows, which is like restaurants, like a hair cutting place, which would be like, I don't want to say the name of the hair, I'm not here to advertise a hair cutting place, but Great Clips is usually what's there. So the concern is this, for me, you already have an existing Kroger with restaurants and a hair cutting place and some more retails there. So what happens when you shut down one Kroger to open up another Kroger? Do those folks move over also, and that leaves that whole existing Kroger and retail shops vacant? It's just a concern for the community, I think, for me.
Kroger will own both properties. Okay. So it doesn't help Kroger financially to leave a space without tenants. That's actually detrimental to the company. So they're going to want to anyone that wants to move over, I'm sure they'll let them move in terms of but they're going to want to relocate and release the other spaces, including the smaller Kroger that's there. So their intention is to release that. They own it. So, of course, they're not going to release it to a grocer, but they would want to release it to someone else that can use that space. The nice thing about that space is it's nowhere near as large as this one, which is the reason why they're moving. They love the location. They love the community. A lot of great relationships, if you will, shopping relationships built, and they want to stay there in that community. This is a place where they can move and build their more modern store, much larger space. And so with the smaller space, you can actually do more with it in terms of rental, because it's not so large that it would be unusual, if you will, for that area. So to answer your question, they're going to hold the space across the street and lease those spaces to tenants. The tenants that are there want to stay there. That'll be up to them as long as they're paying the rent, I'm sure. But let me add this about another reason why we're doing the parking the way we are is I want to point this. This is really kind of cool. I'm envious. I don't live in this neighborhood, but I'm envious for the neighborhood. Over in this area here, Kroger is actually putting in, I hope this is okay for me to say this, but the internet shopping. So you can go online and you can purchase your groceries online, pay for them, and then go to the store, drive up, and pick up your groceries right there without having to get all the kids out of the car. And I got 3 kids. They're young, and it's a handful to get all kids out there and keep them in the cart or around the cart and out of the cereal boxes and out of all the candy bars and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, my kids are not very well disciplined. That says something about me, but that's a story for another time. But I love this, and I think this is great. And to me, this is another reason to justify the parking reduction and the variances we're asking for, because you're going to have people that are coming in and literally parking for just a few minutes in that designated area to pick up groceries and leave. They're not getting out of the car to go in to shop. And I've not misrepresented that, have I? Okay, good. No, I haven't. So I just want to share with you, I thought this is a very unique thing. I think this is going to make this even more of an attractive place to go for families and mothers with kids and dads with kids, probably more for me than anybody, because I'm not very good at herding them around.
So they bring the groceries out to you?
Yes, they do.
So then people don't have to leave their kids in hot cars.
That's right. So
it's a safety thing too.
That's a good safety
that's
thing
awesome.
as well. That's right.
That'll help deter that, hopefully.
It just tells you how considerate of a father I am. I hadn't thought about that, but that's a really good
But
point.
I mean, that's the first thing I thought of, because a lot of people, I'll just run to the grocery store. It won't take me 5 minutes.
Yeah, so you order online and you
Right.
come in. So you order on your phone. You pick your groceries out. You place your order. You pay for it. Pick your groceries up and go home.
Hey, I think
That's pretty cool.
I might move over there so I can use that service. Okay, anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Okay, so you may be seated.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll have those who want to speak in favor of the case to come up. You'll have 10 minutes to speak in favor of the case.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address the board.
Are you speaking in favor of the case? And if you so,
I'm speaking in favor of, I'm agreeing with one of the staff recommendations. I also disagree with another, so I would sit back down and then come back up.
So I guess it's the whole case, but we'll allow it. Okay. So
Okay.
just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Elisa Roberts, and my property is 175 Moss Drive. I am the adjacent homeowner. So I own the parcel in red right there, and the area in blue is the Halpern Enterprises property. So this is my property along Moss Drive. So I just wanted to initially say that I agree with the planning staff's recommendation to deny the request to reduce the minimum setback from 100 to 50 feet to preserve the integrity of the residential property. And then I disagree with another recommendation, so should I sit back down?
Well, this is like the case. And we're talking about variances, and there's different ones. So you're really in opposition of the setback. Is that what you're saying?
I'm agreeing with I'm agreeing with the recommendation to deny the the request to reduce the setback from 100 feet.
That's been removed.
Okay.
That's been
okay.
removed. So yes, yeah, you don't have to come up and say that. But thank you. Does that make sense? It's been
Yes.
removed. Okay.
Yes.
So the next thing is denial. So I'll call you back up when,
All right,
let's see if anyone else wants to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else want to speak in favor of this case? Okay. So now we'll switch to anyone who wants to speak in opposition of the case, of the variances.
Okay, again, my name is Elisa Roberts, and I disagree with the planning staff's recommendation to approve the reduction of the buffer from 40 feet to 20 feet. However, after the workshop session, I spoke with both Mr. Welsh and Mr. West with Halpern Enterprises, and they were both, and I think Mr. Welsh also stated to you that they would agree to maintain the 40-foot buffer along my property line and then reduce it to a 20-foot buffer. And just so for your information, I already have a 6-foot chain link fence along my entire property line there. And the school also has a school fence along this entire line. So I think there is a chain link fence 6 feet tall along this whole thing already. If they want to put a decorative fence in addition, I'm sure no one would mind, but just for your information. So I think we may have resolved the buffer issue, but I wanted to state my disagreement with the initial recommendation for the record. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case? Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Mark Jones. I live at 212 The Abbey, McDonough, Georgia, not too far from there. Madam Secretary, Madam Commissioner, I'm sorry, and the commissioners. I just learned really about this project not too long ago. One of my neighbors who I work with, they gave me this information, so I was able to look at it. Just briefly, I do have some questions. I've lived there for about 10 years. They've been talking about building a bigger Kroger because it is fairly small. I understand that. My concern is the location of it. I understand it's a prime location of 155 in Eastlake, but you're back against the corner of it. It's going to be against the school. You have the subdivision on one side. To me, it's a lot. You're kind of like landlocking yourself in with this location. I think that it would be better suited to have that Kroger at maybe a different location. If you look at where they're proposing it, you have a stoplight that's going to be on Eastlake and 155. You probably have to have another stoplight in front of the Kroger, and then you have another stoplight at the intersection of North Salem Road and the fire station. There's 3 stoplights that are just right there together. My other concern is the roads. Eastlake, there's only, it's really short on that side of the road. There's only 3 lanes, going down to 2 lanes. You're building a bigger, area, but the roads are not catching up. It seems like the road structure should be there first before you start adding all these other buildings. That has going to increase the traffic. That is also my concern. Having the existing Kroger, like you had mentioned before, what kind of building or what type of tenant it's going to have, it seems like, I understand if Kroger still owns it, they wouldn't want a Trader Joe's or other type of competing store. But those type of stores, Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, would bring competition and also increase the property values. And so I think that should be considered as well. Just being the location is just, I really like Kroger. I do a lot of my shopping at Kroger. I'm just very hesitant about the actual location and the street infrastructure not being there. So that's my concern.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak in opposition of the case?
Hi, my name is Stephen Marsh. I live at 124 Knight Drive, McDonough, Georgia. My main concern with this project really is traffic. As a gentleman said before, these roads, East Lake and 155 at that corner, is a very complex corner, especially in the mornings and the afternoons when school is let in and let out. The entry, I didn't get a chance to see the full, it's hard to see the pictures from there, but the entryway and exit ways of the proposal seem to be a concern to me, as far as, you already have across the other intersection of 155, you have CVS Pharmacy there, you have Shane's Rib Shack on the other side, and there's so many accidents that happen there because of the way that the entrances and exits are formulated for the businesses that are there. So the roads really can't handle those types of, that type of traffic. You're gonna have people trying to get out onto 155 that want to turn right instead of, left instead of right, and they're gonna have to cross traffic. And then it looks like they're gonna come out on East Lake also, which is gonna be the same problem that you're gonna have, and it's already gonna be backed up from the intersection. We have now, as of last night, the approval to change the zoning off of Crumbly Road from RA to R2 to put in a subdivision, which is gonna come out on Crumbly onto 155, which is not too far from the East Lake and 155 intersection itself, which is going to increase traffic in that area quite a bit. So not necessarily opposed to the whole project, but I think a traffic study really needs to be done, and I got to agree that this might not be the right spot. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come and speak opposition to the case?
Good evening. I'm Amanda O'Cretney. I live at 1201 Cooper Ridge, McDonough, Georgia. I have children that attend the Union Grove schools, and my main concern tonight is the traffic as well. Union Grove Middle School parents will back up and block the 155 East Lake intersection just for pickup traffic in the afternoon. Right now, they have to reroute us into the high school where we block the high school traffic. So the roads definitely cannot handle an entry and exit. And if you look here, this roadway right here is a high school. 16-year-olds pulling out of a parking lot. So on top of the congested traffic, we're also looking at roads that cannot handle it, as well as inexperienced drivers. This area is also known for several accidents, so I too would like to see a traffic study done there. The Dunkin' Donuts, the gas station, the Shane's, it's already a death trap to come in and out of there every day. I too think that this proposal would be a great store. I just fear the location. Years ago, we were told in the community that the property across from Kroger on what is now East Lake Parkway, I believe has been renamed, was going to be the new location for a new Publix or a larger Kroger. I think that might actually be a better location, as the roadway has been created into a 4-lane road there. The 155 East Lake, you're looking at a lot of construction. You already have several issues on East Lake as is, with new roundabouts and 4-way proposals that have not been completed. So I just think a different location. Another concern that I have too, has also been voiced tonight, is the fact of the empty shopping center. Given what we see in towns like Morrow, Jonesboro, places throughout Clayton County, these become eyesores, areas for troubled kids to hang out in empty parking lots at night. That Kroger parking lot is already a hangout area, as we've seen our first gang graffiti this week. So that concerns me. if they're not going to lease to another competitor grocery store, which I understand, who would you lease to? The area does not have a threshold of a market nor a range for any other shopping areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case? Okay, we'll ask the applicant to please step forward. Do the board members have any questions for the applicant after hearing comments from the public?
I have a question for staff.
Mr. Nelson has a question for the staff.
Yes, for DOT, have we conducted any traffic studies in that area?
Previously looked at the school entrances. We've done some preliminary work with a traffic consultant. Whether roundabouts or signals, and there's no funding there currently. The East Lake is on the comprehensive transportation plan as a future widening. So when we're talking widening, likely we're talking about a 4-lane raised median. That also is currently not on the plan. Whether it might be a future SPLOST or not, I don't know, but it's obviously not on SPLOST 4, which is the current program. On the rezoning, which is the next case, we have a requirement for traffic impact study concerning their access to East Lake Road. They show full access to East Lake. It basically is right on their property line, just across their property line on Fort Education property. So we have that condition on the rezoning. On the variance, we don't have anything with variances about parking. The buffers is not necessarily about the rezoning.
Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Richard?
Yes, I just have one question. I think that you're showing a entrance coming off of Highway 155, I think adjacent to the Carter Tire Company. Would that be the main entrance into the complex, or would the main entrance be off of East Lake Road?
There'll be two entrances. We are doing traffic studies on both of these intersections. So we're doing those anyway because of the necessity of traffic lights. So we're doing those already, and it is a requirement on the condition of zoning for the next item on your agenda. The main entrance will be, there's two of them. It will be here at this location here by the fuel pumps here, and then we're working out the other one will be down here off of East Lake Road that will come in by the school. And in working with the Board of Education, there'll be a traffic light here, and I'm sorry, it's right here on this show. And that actually will provide traffic relief with respect to the high school that was mentioned by Miss Amanda in terms of providing traffic relief there by creating an intersection there and actually having a cross easement with the Board of Education. They'll be able to connect up and have a longer stacking area for the parents that are coming and the children that are coming to pick up, the parents picking up children and the younger kids that are driving out. So this is actually designed with that in mind to try to relieve some of that traffic congestion. And we're looking at the signalization of both of them, and then you'll of course hear more about that in the next rezoning request. I'll point out just for the record that we have asserted a constitutional rights. We do believe that these are the requests that we're making are consistent with those rights as a property owner. And this property is already zoned commercial, C2 commercial, for a shopping center. So the request before you, just so we're clear and the public's clear, is not to change the zoning. The request is just to tweak some of the requirements of zoning to better accommodate the site for the particular Kroger shopping center. If it's not Kroger, which has making significant investments both in the community and this property, then it will be something else. It will be some other use, and it will be a commercial use, and you may not get all the conditions and additions and landscaping and things like that that you're seeking, because as it is right now, there are no conditions on the underlying zoning. Commercial can be built there with a permit tomorrow. So this is, we think we're doing the right thing by the community, and we're doing the right thing in terms of our request. So we hope that you'll approve the variance with the adjustments that we've made to address Ms. Alicia's concerns.
Any other board members have any questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be, no, you may be seated. Thank you. Okay, will you please call the case?
Case number VR-16-05, Halpern Enterprises Incorporated of Atlanta, Georgia, request a variance from development regulations for property located at 58 East Lake Road in land lot 27 of the 7th District. The property consists of 31.78 plus or minus acres, and the request is to allow the development of a shopping center. It is located in Commission District 3 and was presented by Ms. Josephine Medina.
For this case?
Yes, I make a motion to approve the variances. Just bear with me as I read or summarize the parking variances, buffer, and sign variances. That would be to reduce the required number of parking spaces for general retail and shopping up to 250,000 square feet from one space per 150 square feet of gross floor area to one parking space per 250 square feet of gross floor area. Also, to reduce the number of parking spaces for grocery and other food stores from one parking space per 100 square feet of customer area to one parking space per 250 square feet of customer area. Remove the requirement for at least 20% of the parking to be pervious pavement, gravel, grass, turf block, or similar materials for establishments over 40,000 square feet. The number of handicap parking spaces would have to meet ADA or ULDC standards, whichever is greater. On the buffer variance, reduce the 40-foot required buffer to a 20-foot buffer with decorative fence, except where it adjoins the 2-acre tract on Moss Road. That will remain as a 40-foot landscape buffer. The sign variances would be according to a master sign plan, and they are listed in your exhibit as A, B, and C, called Exhibit A.
I have a motion by Mr. Risher. Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a second by Mr. Bailey. Any discussion? All in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. Next case, please.
Case number RZ-16-09, Halpern Enterprises Incorporated of Atlanta, Georgia, request a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to C2 General Commercial for a property located at 58 East Lake Road in land lot 27 of the 7th District. The property consists of 4.582 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a shopping center and is located in Commission District 3 and will be presented by Ms. Josephine Medina.
Good evening once more.
Good evening.
So if you take a look at the overhead, just to give you an idea of where the property is on the development. So the property that's being requested for rezoning would be this location right here, which is on 58 East Lake Road. So if we look at the current, at the aerial, this is the location being requested. It is to the east of a gasoline station and Dunkin' Donuts, and to the west of Union Grove High School, and also to the north of the vacant property that is currently zoned C2. So the applicant is requesting for rezoning from RA to C2 for 4.582 acres. If we take a look at the surrounding zoning, it is surrounded by commercial, with the exception of the school that is to the east of the property. So it is surrounded by non-residential uses. The applicant has provided a preliminary site plan showing the intent to propose a 6,400 square foot restaurant and a 9,750 square foot retail space as two out parcels. So the proposed rezoning, the future land use designation is commercial, which would be consistent with the future with the request. It is also within an activity center, the school node, a school node, which does have a targeted mix of non-commercial land use of 15%. Currently, the activity center has a land use mix of non-residential of 13.8%. With if you wish to recommend approval of this rezoning, it would increase the number of non-residential land in this activity center to 14.3, which would get you close to the 15 targeted mix without exceeding what is the goal of that activity node. So with staff looking at all the criteria points for a rezoning, including how it will affect neighboring properties, since they are all non-residential, the increase in noise or traffic would not affect the adjacent properties per se, and zoning conditions could be placed and recommended by the zoning advisory board that might help mitigate any impacts that might adversely affect the adjacent properties. Staff does recommend approval of the rezoning from RA to C2 with the following 10 conditions, and staff will be happy to answer any questions.
Any board members have any questions for staff?
You said that there was 10 conditions?
Correct. And those should be on your report.
Okay, because we have one exhibit with 7 conditions.
Right, and those were the ones that were suggested by the agent.
Okay, all right, these are the...
Right, so this one includes, and David, am I right, that the difference is mostly in the acquisition of right-of-way?
That's the predominant change from the existing, or from the staff report conditions to the conditions that Mr. Welch is proposing on behalf of his client.
Okay, I understand.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, I'm going to call the applicant to please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record again.
Yes, ma'am. Andy Welch with the law firm of Smith, Welch, Webb & White. We're here to present to you a rezoning request. This, as staff has informed you, this request is consistent with your future land use map. It is consistent with the surrounding zoning of commercial. This will actually marry into the project with these two lots here. Outlot 1 and Outlot 2 is the subject area. Mr. West and Halpern have been working actually for quite some time with Mr. Simmons and the DOT department, and the preferred layout is what you see here in terms of the road layouts. And so this would just zone that property to match the same zoning as that of the Kroger facility next door. And with the conditions that have been recommended, we wanted to make an adjustment on the landscaping plan area there on the condition number 3. We've submitted to the staff what we call Exhibit A for the conditions of rezoning to application RZ 16-09. And with that, on the line item number 3, we wanted to add, after a detailed landscaping plan shall be submitted, and include with the frontage trees being spaced 25 feet apart. So that would be consistent. And we made, just so we're clear, that was not a condition placed on the variances before, but it's our intention to do that so that it looks the same throughout. So just so you understand that will be our intention to do that on the other parcel. And that was the only change we wanted to make to these conditions. But we've worked with staff, and I'll just be with staff about these conditions. And there is one issue that we have gone back and forth on, and I just want to be clear and upfront with that. I think David was talking about it earlier. And that is, we're doing a traffic impact study for this site, and it will impact also what happens on the other part of Kroger, because it all has to flow together. And we have agreed to be responsible for the design, the utility relocation, which can be quite expensive, as well as the construction of the new intersections that will be required on the property that's being rezoned off of that one. And in saying that, that means that none of those costs are placed on the taxpayer. It's all placed on the developer. And the only exception to that would be right-of-way acquisition. And right-of-way acquisition as a private landowner, some states allow this, but not in Georgia. The developer doesn't have any authority to go and condemn property or take property. They have to purchase property to do that. And so what typically happens is that we ask for, on behalf of the property owner, to keep the acquisition of right-of-way in the public domain so that it stays with the with Henry County in terms of acquiring property. That being said, we are optimistic that we're already preserving a frontage along this. As you saw in the conditions, we're preserving a frontage 60 feet from the center line. We're optimistic that this design can be done so that it can be done within the existing right-of-way. Now, if that's not the case, then of course we'll be looking to work with the county on how to acquire some additional right-of-way. But it's our anticipation that we could probably work all this into the existing right-of-way with that frontage being considered. And that is property that is essentially Halpern's property that is being set aside for that right-of-way. So it's essentially being set aside for this very purpose of expanding the right-of-way to make it work. I was kidding with David the other night saying that, David, with your expertise and your design skills, I'm sure you can make it fit. And of course he didn't. He took kindly to the comment, but he still said, you know, it may not. So we're just being candid about that, but that is in these conditions. We would ask that you respect that the property condemnation is one of the public sector, not the private sector, and it can be really messy if we have to get into the business of trying to take property from other people. We don't want to be in that business. So with that said, I'm happy to take any questions that you have about the rezoning request on this project.
Mr. Richard, do you have anything you want to ask of the applicant?
Not right now, although frequently, property owners do donate right away, to the county and the cities. But we don't need to get into that issue tonight. So, but that is common. So.
And we may have to do that in order to fit the road in without going to acquire the right of way. But that's why David asked us to preserve that area from the center line 60 feet in. So I think that's in anticipation of that, but hopefully we'll work all that out as we actually engineer the new alignment.
I think I'm through for now.
Okay. I just have one question, I guess, just curiosity. When would the proposed development, would it start? This year, I believe. Let me check with that. Yes. This year? This year. They're ready to go. Okay. That was just curiosity. Okay. Any other, Mr. Risher?
Just one more comment or question is that when we talked about the landscape plan and the trees being spaced 25 feet apart, now that is both for the 4.582 acre tract that we're considering now, as well as the currently zoned C2 tract consisting of the 31.7 acres.
Yes, sir. We will abide by that request. Yes, sir.
Okay.
On both tracks. We make sure. Thumbs up. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I think we forgot to put it in the variance part, because this is yeah.
We did.
I
wanted
saw
to say
that.
something, but
I just saw that. Yeah. That's
but
okay.
I think
We're good.
if Mr. Risher will, we'll pass it along to Commissioner Barham and Commissioner Prince and let them know that was our intention.
Okay.
And we can revise it at the board meeting to include that too, so it'll be permanent. Well, I'm fine if you wanted to go and amend that motion tonight and put that in there tonight. I'm fine with that as well. So, because I think the variance won't go to the Board of Commissioners, it stops here.
And this decision is final with the zoning advisory board for the variance, but the rezoning will go to the Board of Commissioners for final decision.
So the zoning will go before them.
We'll just have to rely on your good faith that is going to happen.
Yes.
And I drive by that property almost every day, and you know that if I don't see those trees 25 foot apart, I am going to say something. I will call your number.
You definitely know how to get a hold of me. Get my attention. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I will try. Okay.
You won't be the only one, because I know that Mr. Risher will be. I know that Dante will be. And if I ever want to show my face in his office again, I'd better make it work.
And so the public knows they have agreed to make sure those trees are 25 foot apart. So if the public will help me out too, so it'll be an outcry. How about that?
Yes,
okay. So you may be seated. I don't think there's any other questions. At this time, we're going to ask for those who want to speak in favor of the case to please come forward. We'll give you 10 minutes to speak in favor of the case. Okay, I don't see anyone coming up. At this time, we'll allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. And this will be the rezoning of the, is it 4 acres?
4.582 acres.
Yeah, 4.5, the rezoning of those acres from.
My name is Stephen Marsh. I live at 124 Knight Drive, McDonough, Georgia.
Okay.
I kind of want to sound like a broken record here, but the rezoning to commercial allows for more shops to go in. I think I saw the plan for a restaurant and some other shops to be on that property. You know, Kroger traffic bringing, the Kroger's bringing traffic, and this is adjacent to the Kroger's. You're going to have now even more traffic with more businesses in that area. And I really, you know, I hate to say it, but I unfortunately haven't heard anything. I hear a lot of concerns about a lot of areas, right? I hear concerns for trees, I hear concerns for noise, and, you know, I hear very small concerns for the traffic. Oh, we'll put a lane in. Well, they put a lane in on East Lake for the middle school just a year ago, or half a year ago, right? It hasn't alleviated anything, right? So, you know, I really haven't heard much about changing the roads or fixing the roads as any conditions to any of these businesses going in, right? You're going to change the residential, which I understand it's abutted to commercial, right? Makes no sense. I don't think anybody would really buy that property for residential. I'm sure the price of it was pretty expensive. Nobody could afford to buy it for residential. But as we look at areas across the county, nobody goes through and actually says, you know, over the years that this property is zoned for commercial or residential, and just decides to change it because it shouldn't be that way anymore. It only gets changed when someone purchases it, wants to do something different with it, right? So I just want to take, you know, have your consideration that the traffic is probably the biggest deal here. I think the store is a great idea. I'm not saying that having a shop or a restaurant there is a bad idea. I just think the traffic there is just going to be horrendous, and I think we're going to see a lot of problems because of it if this goes through. Thank you very much.
Please state your name.
Yes, again, my name is Mark Jones at 212 The Abbey, McDonough, Georgia. Again, my concern is obviously traffic and the roads. One thing that you know, that happens a lot is we build these businesses and then we're like, okay, now we got to accommodate the roads. Very few cases, especially in Henry County, are the roads prepared ahead of time before the businesses come. And I think that's something that, that the county just really needs to consider, the traffic, having the roads prepared beforehand, because we have a situation on Jonesboro Road over there by the Home Depot and stuff, where there's only 2 lanes of traffic, and have all those businesses there, and traffic is just horrendous. The county really needs to consider building the roads first before these businesses come in. That's my concern, to help alleviate traffic. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Okay, I don't see anyone coming up. All right, well, I ask the applicant to please come forward. Do the board members have any other questions for the applicant? Mr. Risher.
Excuse me. I just wanted to make a comment that the county currently is going through a process of updating its long-range and short-range transportation plans. So I think some of those issues that were mentioned will be addressed.
Yes, if I might, just I don't mean to sound windy or blustery about this, but the project, traffic is a concern, but as a matter of law, constitutional law, and law in the state of Georgia, traffic itself can be an issue, but it can't be dispositive. And the county, local governments cannot exact traffic demands out of property owners, because traffic is deemed a part of the public. It's a public issue. And so what's unique about this particular applicant, which you won't find in a lot of the applicants that come before you, is that we have already been working with staff, and we actually just got in the impact study this evening. It came across my email. So we're already working hand in hand with the county to address as many of the traffic concerns that we can financially and legally address with respect to this. The overall traffic problems that exist throughout the county is just one of those symptoms of people finding, wanting to come here. And this, if it weren't for so many people driving through the intersection already, you wouldn't have the demand, the commercial demand that you see in this project and other projects that are coming in around the county. And we're always constantly caught between that. Do we concentrate our commercial and development, or do we let it sprawl out along the roads? And I was talking to Mr. Jones about that, and our plan calls for concentration of that. That's what our comprehensive plan calls for, as opposed to sprawling it out along the interstates and gobbling up the residential or farmland or the things that we find attractive about Henry County. And so you're constantly caught in that struggle, and this is one of those situations where the plan calls for it to be concentrated around this intersection, major intersection, and that's, our request is just consistent with that plan.
Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? You may be seated. Can we please call the case?
Case number RZ-16-10, I'm sorry, RZ-16-09, I accidentally went to the next case. Halpern Enterprises Incorporated of Atlanta, Georgia requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to C2 General Commercial for a property located at 58 East Lake Road in land lot 27 of the 7th District. The property consists of 4.582 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a shopping center and is located in Commission District 3 and was presented by Ms. Josephine Medina.
Do you have a motion for this case?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request to rezone property consisting of 4.582 acres, also known as 58 East Lake Road, from RA to C2, with the 10 conditions mentioned in the staff's report that's in our books, and also with an amendment to the condition for a detailed landscape plan that would depict a 25-foot spacing of trees for the front, side, and rear of both tracks, consisting of 31.72 acres and 4.5 82 acres. Also, I want to include the recommendations as conditions from our Henry County DOT, and I think that that includes items 5, 6, and 7 on Exhibit A. If staff would like to put these up on the table so that everybody can see what they are. Okay, so 5, 6, and 7 are the recommendations of our Henry County DOT. So I would like to make that part of the motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Risher. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? So I'm confused. So I just want to make sure that everybody else understands. Oh, David, yes.
I can chime in at this point, but
Yes, this is discussion.
5, 6, and 7 of the Exhibit A basically are included within the staff 10. 5, 6, and 7, really 1 through 7 Exhibit A was something provided by the applicant's agent, with the only difference being in his number 7 that they would not be required to acquire any right of way. So I'm just saying you're putting conditions on top of the state conditions, other than one of them's got a difference about them.
Okay, I'll withdraw 5, 6, and 7 from the motion.
Okay. My seconder on that? Oh, Mr. Babb, are you in agreement with that? Okay. So we're going to revise that motion to not include the 5, 6, and 7 on Exhibit A. Did you then therefore want to amend it also to include the language that David had suggested that is in there, number 7, regarding the easement?
Yes.
Because that is not in staff's recommendation.
Yes, we want to drop that, I believe, don't we, number 7?
David, do you want to?
Condition number 9 of the 10 includes acquisition of right-of-way requirement on the applicant. And that's basically, as far as DOT is concerned, that's the difference between the two documents. His document, they're not required to acquire right-of-way, and our 10 conditions in the staff does include acquisition of right-of-way on the developer, owner, or applicant.
Okay, well, let me repeat again that the motion to approve includes items 1 through 10 of the conditions in the staff report.
Okay. And the seconder was Mr. Babb. Are you in agreement with those recommendations? Any other discussion?
Can I chime in, please?
Mr. Nelson?
Yes. Shouldn't that amendment be to approve the 7 conditions of staff report? I think the 10 is from,
No, the 10 is staff. The 10 is staff.
okay,
And the 7
are in the staff
are
report.
from, the 7 are from the applicant.
okay. I'm in agreement then.
Okay. So I still have a question. So the number 9 of the staff's recommendation puts the onus back to the owner, I think, for the easement. Is that correct?
Right, it would put the onus on them for right-of-way easement acquisition for any offsite, for any property outside of their property that's related to any roadway.
Is that what is, instead of what the number 7 says, that it puts it back on the Henry County, on the county to do that?
Well, let's just leave it like it is, number 9, and then the county DOT and the applicants can work out right away. I think that's beyond the purview of this board anyway.
Okay,
so.
okay. And also your number 3, it still contained the addition of the 25 linear foot for the trees?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that did not change?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Madam Chair, for the record, could you state that motion
One more time.
Clearly.
In its entirety.
All right, I'm sorry to create so much confusion, but here it is again.
Okay.
I make a motion to rezone property located at 58 East Lake Road, consisting of 4.582 acres, with the conditions 1 through 10 contained in the staff report.
Okay, do I have a second? Any discussion?
And just one last thing, in terms of the landscape plan, trees on the front, rear, and sides of the combined properties would be 25 feet apart.
Okay, so you want to amend your motion. The seconder, are you in agreement for the amendment of the motion? Okay. So Dante, we have a motion, it was seconded, and then it was amended, and the seconder agreed for that amendment? Are we clear on that? Is that okay. All in favor? Indicate by raising your hand. Okay, motion carried.
Okay, that was a struggle, but we got it.
Hopefully we got that right. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nelson. Sorry.
Okay. We hear the next case, please. Case RZ 1610.
Case number RZ 1610, Henry County Board of Commissioners requests a rezoning from C2 General Commercial to C3 Highway Commercial for the property located at 5970 Eastlake Parkway in land lot 27 of the 7th District. The property consists of 0.35 plus or minus acres, and the request is for an automotive repair shop in District 4, and the case is presented by Dante Gibbs, Director.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Zoning Advisory Board. The case before you is a Board of Commissioner initiated rezoning. On March 1st, 2016, the Board of Commissioners approved or passed a resolution, and then in this resolution, they authorized or directed the county staff under the direction of the county manager to negotiate a lease arrangement for the subject property. And in that process, the end user or potential end user is wanting to utilize the property as an automotive repair shop. The property is currently zoned C2, and it is surrounded on the north, south, east, and west sides by other commercial properties. The future land use map designates this property as commercial and thus supports a commercial use. However, in order for the end user to utilize this potential property or this property as a potential automotive repair shop, it needs to be C3. C3 is a zoning designation in our UODC that permits such a use. With that said, staff recommends approval with 4 conditions, and I'll read them to you. Condition number 1, all future development plans shall be submitted and reviewed for approval by Henry County. If the current structure is torn down and rebuilt, it shall be constructed of brick, stone, stucco, or any combination thereof. Number 2, any change or modification to any existing signage shall require and be subject to a new permit review process. Number 3, dumpsters shall be placed on a concrete pad. Number 4, any exterior lighting plan shall require that all lighting be of moderate brightness and consist of downcast lighting. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Any questions from the board for staff? Okay, will the applicant come forward, please?
It's the Board of Commissioners. The county attorney is here if he wants to come up, but if not, then I'm the representative tonight.
Okay. Okay, all right. Sir, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Nothing to add. I think Dante did a fine job explaining what's going on. I'm happy to answer whatever questions you may have.
Does the board have any questions for the county attorney?
I do not.
Okay. Okay, at this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone that would speak in favor of the case. I don't see anyone coming forward. So at this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone speaking in opposition of the case. And no one's coming forward. Does the board have any additional questions or any questions at all for the county? At this time, we'd like to call the case.
Case number RZ16-10, Henry County Board of Commissioners requests a rezoning from C2 General Commercial to C3 Highway Commercial for the property located at 5970 Eastlake Parkway in Land Lot 27 of the 7th District. The property consists of 0.35 plus or minus acres, and the request is for an automotive repair shop in District 4, and the case was presented by Dante Gibbs, Director.
Okay, we have the case. Do we have an motion?
I would make a motion to approve RZ 1610 rezoning from C2 General Commercial to C3 Highway Commercial with the 4 conditions as outlined by staff previously.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries.
Okay, next case, please.
Case RZ16-07, Southport Financial Real Estate LLC of Tampa, Florida requests a rezoning from C2 General Commercial to RM Multifamily Residential for the property located at 2129 Jonesboro Road in Land Lot 109 of the 6th District. The property consists of 7.5 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a multifamily residential development in District 2. It'll be presented by planner Stacy Jordan Rudisil.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. The case before you tonight is on Jonesboro Road, and it's displayed on the overhead, and it's also in your exhibit books. This is Jonesboro Road here. This is Chambers Road. You've got Town Center Village here with the Mandalay Apartments here. The subject property is indicated hatched in green, and it's immediately to the west of Vinings Park subdivision at Vinings Drive. It's immediately across Jonesboro Road from Crown Park and Crown Park Drive. The hatched area is actually the entire 10 acres of the current parcel, but the applicant is only bringing before you the rear 7.5 acres for rezoning from the current C2 general commercial zoning to RM residential multifamily, which means that the frontage of this parcel, the 2.7 acres, will remain C2. The applicant is proposing a 120-unit apartment complex. So this diagram is showing Jonesboro Road to the left side of your screen with an access road that cuts across the 2.7 acres in the front, which will remain commercial, to provide access to the apartment complex in the rear. And you'll notice that the apartment complex abuts Vinings Park to the east and to the south. In your staff report, staff has evaluated the request based upon the criteria in the ordinance, and we've noted the fact that for the most part, the proposed development complies with the requirements of the Unified Land Development Code. And the couple of places where it may not, namely with setbacks and with maximum impervious surface. It is possible for the development to comply as long as certain changes are made, which it's staff's understanding that these changes could be made. And so staff recommends approval with 5 conditions, and I would be pleased to answer any questions.
Do any of the board members have any questions for staff? I just noted that it might have a negative impact on the level of service of Jonesboro Road. I guess there will be increased traffic right there. Would there be a red light there, David, because what there?
Where their proposed access is.
Right.
I doubt it. The concept 4-lane that Georgia DOT has, their current concept, there will be a raised median through the frontage, and there will not be an opening at this location. More than likely, the next opening would be at Diamond's Park, which would be slightly to the east.
So they will just be able to turn right out of that?
Once it's 4-lane. I mean, in the interim, I don't know how GDOT will permit their driveway, whether they'll allow them to have full access or go ahead and make it right in, right out to where they get used to that. It's going to be, 4 or 5 years from now.
Okay. I mean, that has been a subject of discussion tonight with traffic, and Jonesboro Road is one of those that backs up, so this is going to increase that. Just a comment. Okay. Any other comments with staff? All right, ask the applicant to please come forward. State your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, PJ Hornick, Southport Development, 5403 West Gray Street, Tampa, Florida.
All right, you have anything you would like to add to staff comment?
No, I'd just like to reiterate the points that the staff report made. This project is good for the county in that it's going to provide affordable housing for residents. It is in an infill suburban location. It's nearby nodes of commercial development, so it promotes the mixed income and the walkability of the area. And we'd be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, anyone have any questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated. At this time, we're going to call for 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. I don't see anyone coming up, so now we're going to allow 10 minutes for those who speak in opposition of the case. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's William Hull with WRL Associates 3. We own the property to the, we own the property to the west that fronts Jonesboro Road, 21.5 acres, where the CVS sits on the corner. I've got several concerns about this project. First of all, if it is only a right-in, right-out onto Jonesboro Road, there is a cross easement that we have with this property. So that means if anybody back here out of 120 units, 120 families, 250 cars, if they want to go west on Jonesboro, when we build this out up here, then they're going to cut through our shopping center, our commercial property, to get over to Chambers, to get out to the light at Chambers in Jonesboro, which that would put a lot of traffic going through our development, future development. That's one concern. The next concern is first of all, the number of units, 120 units on 7.5 acres, 250 cars, 240 to 250 cars, is really, really high density there. And obviously, it's in violation of the master land use plan, which I guess is the next thing we're coming up to. But in addition to that, the sewer, when we developed this property, and when I say develop, put the CVS in and the detention and the sewer and the water, we brought the sewer, came across, got easement across the property in back of us, and brought it alongside where they can tie into it. And of course, we paid and put all that sewer in. I just would like to find out if, in fact, that the sewer capacity will be available after 120 families move into here, that will have some sewer capacity left for the project that we developed after having paid for those sewer lines. And the only other thing is as I mentioned earlier, the entrance onto Jonesboro Road, if it is only a right-in, right-out without a stoplight. And of course, the people coming out, I think it's called Crown Point across the way where the road is lined up with that neighborhood. If there is a median there, and I was told, back before the recession, there was the DOT was planning on doing all this widening and putting the median in, and there was a thing up the road at the school where you could come and see everything. And they had talked about putting a light there. But like somebody mentioned a minute ago, that may be 4 or 5 years from now. And so, and it may never happen. But it would cause a real hardship on our development if any of these people, which a lot of them are probably going to want to go west. And the simple thing for them to do isn't to go out and make a right and go up and make a U-turn. It's to cut through our development, to go out onto Chambers, and then on out onto Jonesboro. And I guess that's about it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in opposition of the case?
Yes, my name is Edwin Schiffer. I am also associated with WRL Associates 3, which is the owner of the adjacent property, which Mr. Hull was just talking about. I'm concerned on a number of issues, in addition to what was just mentioned. The first of which is that I think it's 58% of this property is now going to be impervious, either have buildings on it or parking, as opposed to 25%, which is a recommendation, more than double. The density is tremendous. And I don't know the area as well as maybe I should, but I would ask this question: how many other places have six-story apartment buildings on them? I just don't think it's consistent. It was intended to be 6-story all the way in the back office buildings, not apartment buildings with this kind of density. So from a density standpoint, the height of apartments being inconsistent and the impervious surface, I think, are all negative factors that need to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come and speak in opposition of the case? All right, can I ask the applicant to please come forward? Do any of the board members have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Risher.
Yes, were you aware of these cross easement situations with the adjacent property?
May I respond to a few of the things brought up?
Go ahead.
So the apartments are going to be 2 and 3 stories, not 6 stories. The density of 16 units an acre is within the ordinance of what is allowed by the zoning we're seeking. As far as the traffic goes, it's been a common theme tonight that Henry County is growing and there's traffic. But be that as it may, the highest and best use of the rear portion of this property is apartments. Our design is preserving the retail use for the frontage, and also using the back portion of this long rectangular site for its highest and best purpose, which is multifamily apartments.
Any board members have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, that was one other concern in terms of the actual sewage there. What's that?
I'm sorry?
There was another concern in reference to the sewage lines.
Well, part of the zoning process is, the request is we had to get utility verifications for capacity, which we did. So the sewage there has the capacity to handle the project.
Mr. Nelson, let me just say that the letter that we do require from the applicant that they received from the Henry County Water and Sewerage Authority, it states whether or not there's adequate capacity for the project. But I think that the landowner to the west concern is, will there be any additional capacity left once the subject property has developed? And we don't know that at this time.
We don't know that at this time.
No, because the letter that was provided is only regarding the subject property. So while we know from that letter that there is capacity at this moment for the apartment complex to develop, we don't know what capacity will be remaining for the neighbor to the west to develop for commercial in the future.
Okay. Now, the neighbor to the west has indicated that they have purchased that sewage line. So my question would be, we put a requirement on them to purchase a sewage line. Do they not have capacity at some point?
And I can tell you that I don't know the answer to these questions.
How would that be accommodated if there's not enough capacity?
That's an excellent question, and we're talking in speculation at this point about a neighboring property that's not our subject. But I would suppose that if there's not adequate capacity, that it would be up to water and sewer if they could add additional capacity, or perhaps if a developer to the west or in another place could extend a sewer line in a different direction. But I can tell you I have no idea, and that this is pure speculation on my part.
Okay.
I have a question real quick, because you talked about walkable community to the adjacent retail shops and things like that, but I don't see any sidewalks. It says sidewalks are not currently provided along the frontage of the current parcel. The subject property does not propose any frontage for the apartment complex within which sidewalks can be located. So where are they going to walk?
Right, well, that's part of the conceptual plan, is we want to add sidewalks.
Okay, so
it would be, what I was suggesting is that the rear is apartments, the front would be retail, those spaces would be walkable, and then in the future, sidewalks going down Jonesboro Road.
So a question to staff, when is it appropriate that we condition that sidewalks be added?
And I can tell you that staff considered a condition that would require sidewalks along Jonesboro Road. However, the portion of this property to be rezoned doesn't have any frontage on Jonesboro Road. So we can't condition a property that's not included in the request. But I can tell you that it's a part of the concept for the widening of Jonesboro Road to include sidewalks.
Okay, so it would be in that concept?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I don't have anything. Mr. Risher?
Getting back to the sewerage issue again, has the Water and Sewer Authority reviewed this project, and have they given us, or will they give us a letter concerning the capacity issue?
Yes, sir. We did receive a letter from the Water and Sewage Authority as part of the applicant's completed packet. And while it doesn't reserve the capacity, it did let us know that there's adequate capacity at this time for the development as proposed.
Okay. I'm afraid I didn't see that the letter in what I have.
The staff report makes mention of it on page 4 under criteria points 6 and 7, water and wastewater treatment. It just simply says that this letter, which is dated March 28th, states that sewage treatment and sewer line capacity are currently available to the property. It does.
All right, I see that now.
Yes, sir.
What does it mean, however, an off-site sanitary line extension is required to serve the property at the developer's expense? So they have to put in
Yeah, right. What that means is that it doesn't run immediately past the applicant's property, but that they'll actually have to run a line to
Okay.
tap in. And in the process of doing that, they may have to acquire the easements to cross a neighboring property, and that's going to be at their own expense.
Okay, so just so we can get this correct, the Henry County Water and Sewer Authority says right now, as far as they know, as is, there's capacity.
Yes, ma'am.
But they're not saying there's capacity if those apartments are put on there.
It seemed to be the neighbors' concern that once the apartments were built and that they did reserve that capacity, they weren't sure if there would be any additional capacity left when they finished completing the neighboring property to the west. And we
okay.
don't know that. There may very well be, but that's not something that we ask because we're concerned about the subject property at this moment.
Right.
Stacy, maybe you, I don't know.
It's tough.
The question I guess I have is that, has the concern of the adjacent property, have their sewage been considered?
No.
Okay.
Now, at the time that the neighboring property would have been rezoned, they would have had to meet the same requirement as our current subject property to receive a letter from Water and Sewer to state whether or not there's adequate capacity. And at that time, I'm assuming that there was, just like for our applicant tonight, for the subject property, there is. But for both of them, I just don't know that at this time.
Okay.
And we don't know how much actual capacity that they purchased when they had the sewer.
That's correct.
Provided to their property. So, and they made the investment, and yet this project could use up a substantial amount of that capacity that they bought.
Let me ask Dante, have we ran into this before, or what happens in this case?
For each respective subject property that comes in for an application for zoning, they are required to submit a letter to the Water Sewer Authority for their subject property, not for the abutting properties, not for the surroundings. So the Water Sewer Authority addresses that particular property and what they are submitting regarding their application for zoning. So in this particular case, they responded accordingly to the subject property, what they're requesting, and they're not required per our application that we give the applicant to address surrounding properties.
Well, I guess, and I'm asking in terms of with the water department or with water and sewage, do they actually take a look at the overall scope of things and say, well, we have a property here that's that's paid for sewage, and we're expecting this number to be here, and now we have an additional property?
Well, a question with needing that kind of specifics needs to be addressed by the Water and Sewer Authority.
Okay.
So what we get is a response letter from the application saying, hey, we're coming to Henry County, we're going to put this here, and they address it, whether or not the property has water and sewer capacity. But specifics as far as what they look at in their criteria, that's best answered by the Water and Sewer Authority. And I hope I answered your question. If I didn't, I apologize.
Well, I guess that's a question for water and sewage.
But is that a concern of the zoning board, though? I mean, is that something we take in consideration, or no?
The Water and Sewer Authority are a separate entity, and sometimes we do get questions concerning the Water and Sewer Authority, but whenever it's concerning the Water and Sewer Authority, we direct them to the Water and Sewer Authority.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the applicant or staff? Are you okay?
One other question.
Okay, that's fine.
At worst, Dante, what can we expect? If it doesn't meet the capacity, what happens?
At worst, they would have to meet the requirements of the Water and Sewer Authority. And if that means adding additional lines or tapping into another line of some sort or extending, then it would be whatever the Water and Sewer Authority requires, but not P&Z.
The existing applicant or the applicant that has paid for this already?
Whoever is applying for the zoning application, whoever's putting their information, whoever's on the application for zoning, that's who they're going to address their requirements to.
Okay.
And Madam Chairman, if I might, many of you may remember several years ago, the city of Stockbridge was working on adding additional sewer capacity, and there was a moratorium on new service until that capacity was able to be offered. And so if you're asking for a worst case, I think that would be it, that development would simply have to wait for new capacity to become available.
Okay. Any other questions? Alrighty, you may be seated. Please call the case.
Case number RZ-16-07, Southport Financial Real Estate LLC of Tampa, Florida, requests a rezoning from C2 General Commercial to RM Multifamily Residential for property located at 2129 Jonesboro Road and land lot 109 of the 6th District. The property consists of 7.5 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a multifamily residential development and is located in Commission District 2 and was presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan Russo.
Do I have a motion for this case?
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning request with the 5 conditions set forth by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll say.
Second by Mr. Head. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Next case.
Case number COMP-AM-16-01, Southport Financial Real Estate LLC of Tampa, Florida, requests a comprehensive amendment for property located at 2129 Jonesboro Road and land lot 109 of the 6th District. The property consists of 7.5 plus or minus acres, and the request is to amend the future land use map designation from commercial to high-density residential and is located in Commission District 2 and will be presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan Rudisil.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. So this particular case before you is the associated case for the previous hearing, and this is a request to change the county's policy guide, the comprehensive plan, and in particular the future land use map that's a part of that policy guide. So displayed on the overhead and also as part of your exhibit books is the future land use map. And so the subject property is in this area right here. So this large line is I-75. You've got Jonesboro Road trending east and west. The red indicates commercial. So you've got this whole node right here that the county plans to be commercial in the future. And you can see surrounding this red commercial node, you have various degrees of residential. So the bright yellow represents a low-density residential between 1 and 2 dwelling units per acre. These are your typical single-family residential subdivisions. As the colors go deeper, the densities increase. So in this general area, you've got this orange, maybe peach color. This is the area of Vinings Park, as well as Canterbury Cove. And so this is a higher density between 2 dwelling units per acre and 3.6 dwelling units per acre. And our subject property is right there to the west of Vinings Park. And so the request is to change not the frontage, which will remain red and commercial, but to change the rear 7.5 acres from red to brown. And the brown stands for high density residential, and that's between 6 and 16 dwelling units per acre. And the applicant needs a 16 dwelling unit per acre to support the request for rezoning to develop as they have proposed. And so in addition to analyzing the character of the area as we've gone over, staff has also, in the staff report on page 2, taken a look at some of the policies that are included in the text of the comprehensive plan. And some of those policies are listed, and many of these policies support the applicant's request for rezoning. So therefore, staff recommends approval of the applicant's request.
Okay, are any comments, questions to staff from board members? Hearing none, I would like to ask the applicant to please come forward.
PJ Hornick, Southport Development, 5403 West Gray Street, Tampa, Florida.
Do you have any questions for the applicant from board members? You may be seated. At this time, we're going to have 10 minutes we're going to allot for those who want to speak in favor of the case. I don't see anyone come up, so now we're going to allot 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. Please state your name and address for the record.
William Hole with WRL Associates 3. Two things. One, going back to the sewer, when we got our property zone and put the sewer in, it was based upon what was under the land use plan then, which was commercial. And obviously, we wouldn't even be having this discussion if that 7.5 acres remained commercial, because you're not going to use near the capacity that you would with 120 families. So that does make a difference in if it remains the same. There won't be a capacity issue if it remained the same zoning. The other thing, as far as apartments in the area, the only apartments in the area that I'm aware of is off, I think is it Ivy Road down where Pfizer is?
Mandalay, I think was the name.
Mandalay. If you're all familiar with Mandalay Apartments, which are very nice apartments. They're 2 stories, they're not 6 stories, but they're only 10 units to the acre. And they have room for sidewalks and what have you, because the density isn't 16 units to the acre. But that is the only apartments in that area. And like he pointed out a minute ago, the surrounding area of this 7.5 acres is almost all commercial, with the exception of some single-family homes that abut the property. But I just wanted to point out there, again, there wouldn't be the sewer issue if in fact it was commercial, remained commercial. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment in opposition of the case? Okay, I don't see anyone coming up. If the applicant could please come back to the podium. After 10 o'clock, I get tongue-tied. Do any of the board members have any questions for the applicant?
Can you state for the record how many stories this apartment's gonna be?
Maximum 3 stories. They're 2-story wings with a mezzanine center, 3-story.
So, not where
Not
do
6
you know
stories.
where they're getting the 6 stories?
There's 6 buildings, so they may have confused that. There's 6 buildings of 2 and 3 stories.
Are there sidewalks in part of the property where the apartments are going to be?
Currently, the conceptual plan indicates sidewalks going from the parking lot to the buildings, but we haven't drawn out the full master plan along the road yet.
And I saw green space, or did I not?
There's some green space in the entry by the common area, the clubhouse and whatnot, and then in the center of the parking.
So can you point that out to me, the green space?
Sure. So, I mean, around here, you're going to have the playground, splash pad, and then, general green space around there. And then in the center, you have a fountain feature with some landscaping, a gazebo, and landscaping throughout. Again, this is just a conceptual plan at this point. It is the highest and best use for this portion of the property, which that's why we're seeking this approval.
Okay.
Well, I do have another question.
Mr.
Now, have
Wilson?
you guys built here in Henry County before? If so, where?
No, sir, not in Henry County.
Okay. Do you have any properties within the metropolitan area?
Our closest property right now is in Tifton, Georgia.
Now, do you plan to build something comparable to what's in the area now?
Yes, I have some sample elevations. This is what the buildings would look like. Again, it's garden style, at least 40% brick facade, vinyl siding. So we think it's congruent with the surrounding uses.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Please call the case.
Case number COMP-AM-16-01, Southport Financial Real Estate LLC of Tampa, Florida, requests a comprehensive plan amendment for property located at 2129 Jonesboro Road in land lot 109 of the 6th District. The property consists of 7.5 plus or minus acres, and the request is to amend the future land use map designation from commercial to high-density residential. The property is located in Commission District 2 and was presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan Rudison.
Okay, I have a, do I have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve based on staff recommendation.
I have a motion for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Head. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by the raising of your hand. Motion carried. Thank you so much. So this will be our last meeting before Memorial Day and the 4th of July, so I just would like to wish everyone a safe Memorial Day and a festive 4th of July, and I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, so moved.